Hello there and welcome to Preparing for Legion. In this series of 10 videos we are going to discuss how you can prepare for the launch of Legion. Be it things you can do right now or information about the various systems you'll be interacting with upon launch, hopefully these will help you prepare yourself for the next expansion. In this video there's been a change of plans. Last time I mentioned we'll discuss spoilers, the topic, not anything in particular, and we will. But for now, let's discuss how dungeons are going to work in Legion. I kinda noticed I forgot to mention them, which is my bad, so let's go over that now. They've received quite a few updates, especially towards the higher end, so let's go over them and how they've changed. So, when Legion launches, there will be 10 dungeons available. The Halls of Valor, the Eye of Azshara, Darkheart Thicket, Neltharion's Lair, Violet Hold, Blackrook Hold, Vault of the Wardens, Maw of Souls, the Court of Stars, and the Archway. It's very likely that more dungeons will be added over the course of Legion's lifespan, since a new one, Karazhan, has already been announced at Gamescom. There are going to be 4 difficulties for these dungeons. Normal, which is the lowest and default level, Heroic, which is level 110 only and is tougher, Mythic, which is again level 110 only and will be very tough, and Mythic Plus, which again, for level 110 only, offers scaling challenges that can become quite literally impossible at certain points. The Halls of Valor, Eye of Azshara, Darkheart Thicket, and Neltharion's Lair will be available from level 98 and above on normal. The Violet Hold will be available on level 105 and above on normal, Blackrook Hold, Maw of Souls, and Vault of the Wardens are level 110 only for all modes. The Archway and the Court of Stars are level 110 only and only have a Mythic version available, and Karazhan will be 110 only and be Mythic only as well, with a weekly lockout much like a mini raid. If you enter dungeons under level 110, you'll likely be placed with players of various levels between 98 and 110. The scaling technology here will allow you to do equivalent damage and healing. This scaling tech is active all across Legion, allowing you to enter any zone you want, save for Suramar, which is 110 only. Enemies will scale to your level. Gear from normal mode at level 110 is item level 810, Heroic loot will be 825, and Mythic loot will be 840. They don't drop weapons, naturally, but they can drop relics that will help you increase the item level of your artifact weapon. All of this can be Titan Forged, as noted in my preparing for the first raid video. You don't need to do the Proving Grounds to enter Heroics, but you'll need an item level of 810 or above to queue. A good tip here is once you reach level 110, just skip normal modes entirely and go straight to Heroic by building a group and then simply entering the dungeon rather than queuing. This will help you gear up faster. Loot is no longer a huge pool shared across dungeons like it was in Warlords of Draenor. Each dungeon drops specific loot once again. Whilst normal and heroic dungeons will be mostly manageable, mythic dungeons will have additional mechanics and can be quite nasty. You can't queue for these, so you'll need to either group up with friends or use the group finder. The Archway and Court of Stars both require attunements to enter, which is basically a little quest chain. I'm not going to go over these and potentially spoil something, as we'll discuss in just a bit, but you'll be able to get these in Suramar. You're really going to just want to 100% Suramar as fast as possible once you reach level 110. It's just full of great stuff. Now, world quests can also happen in dungeons. They'll reward reputation and other rewards like profession recipes and other pieces of loot, and will often involve killing a rare spawn. Basically, if you see one of these, absolutely do it. Now let's talk about Mythic Plus. This difficulty will open up when the first raid, the Emerald Nightmare, opens up on September the 20th, upon which time keystones will begin to drop in Mythic Dungeons. You'll get a keystone when you finish your first Mythic Dungeon for the week. This keystone will have the name of a dungeon and level 2 on it, level 1 being regular Mythic mode. When you enter a Mythic Dungeon with a keystone, you'll notice a pedestal right at the start. Right-click on it and you'll be prompted to insert your keystone. When you insert your keystone, it won't be deleted and the Mythic Dungeon will get harder. Enemies will gain damage and health, but there are a variety of other nasty effects as well. This Mythic Plus dungeon will drop improved loot, including a chest at the end with loot for everyone. After inserting the keystone, a long timer will appear, much like a challenge mode dungeon, but much more lenient. If you complete the dungeon before the timer elapses, your keystone will level up depending upon how fast you were, by up to 3 levels, and it will point to a new random dungeon. It could potentially be the same dungeon as you already did, but if it does this, it will reset the loot table. The chest you get at the end of the dungeon will give you loot per level, so if you did really well and jumped up multiple levels, you'll get multiple pieces of gear. Naturally, the higher level the keystone, the more health and damage enemies will have, and once you reach certain levels, you'll get affixes, bonuses that make the dungeon much harder. These can range from bosses being tougher, trash buffing each other as they die, enraging at low health, applying a stacking debuff, putting fire on the ground. reducing the threat that tanks do, applying constant damage over time while the challenge is active, or increasing the amount of trash in the dungeon. As you level up your keystone for the week, you'll get more affixes that combine eventually, but these combinations are the same for everyone that week. This will scale upwards infinitely to the point where the dungeon will be literally impossible. If you fail to complete the dungeon before the timer runs out, your keystone will be depleted. It won't get destroyed. If it's depleted, you won't be able to get loot from that dungeon on that level until either you complete it within the time limit or the weekly mythic reset takes place. When this reset takes place, usually on Tuesday or Wednesday if you're in the EU, you'll be able to open up a chest in your order hall for an extra piece of gear and a new keystone, whose level will be a fraction of the highest level mythic dungeon you completed the previous week. That keystone is yours for the week and the process essentially restarts. So that's how dungeons work in Legion. Now let's discuss spoilers. But don't worry, we won't actually be spoiling anything. Instead, I'd like to discuss the topic of spoilers in general. This can be a controversial subject I've found, and whether you're hugely into the story and lore of Warcraft or you couldn't care less, no doubt you'll come across this term at some point. So let's get started with a quick question. What is a spoiler? Well, the truth is that I can't really tell you what is and isn't a spoiler, since the definition is highly personal. For me, and you might consider this somewhat ridiculous, anything related to Legion in the slightest is a spoiler. Anything from seeing the details of a class order hall, to hearing a musical piece, to seeing a new model, to reading the name of a scenario, to seeing anything, I would consider them all spoilers. I may very well be a fringe case, and it is honestly a bit silly, but it's important to remember something here. People care about World of Warcraft. Some deeply, some lightly. But people do care. And I feel that we all have a responsibility to not ruin someone's experience, because you can only have that experience for the first time once. You can only see a new zone for the first time once. You can only hear a piece of music from a zone for the first time once. You can only hear a new piece of music for the first time once. You can only read a quest, or hear dialogue, or see a cinematic, or understand a twist of the story for the first time once. In a game like World of Warcraft, which has a lot of repetition at the high end, this is very rare and important to a lot of people. This is why I've been avoiding giving information about how to level up faster or specific tips and tricks at maximum level, since I haven't been doing that. I've been avoiding that stuff so I can discover it for myself. This is something I consider important. I'd like to advise caution about spoilers once Legion launches. If you even slightly, a little bit, consider something you say in guild chat, in a whisper, over voice chat, or wherever else a spoiler, then don't say it. It's that simple. Don't tell that little story or make that point. Just don't. It could ruin someone's experience, and no one wants their experience to be ruined. For at least a good week or so after launch, probably more if you want to be careful, try to avoid talking about these spoilers as much as possible. It's much easier for someone who doesn't care about spoilers to avoid discussing them than it is to try and avoid all spoilers. It's very difficult in this day and age to do that. Empathy will always be the answer, in my humble opinion. If you're at all concerned about spoilers, then I have a couple of suggestions for you. Limit what channels your chat box displays, so leave general, trade, and local defense, enter properties of a tab and disable guild and officer chat, type /D&D so that people understand that you'd like to avoid spoilers. A good idea here is to actually delegate these channels to other boxes. Simply create a new tab entitled No Spoilers, then activate only a few of the essentials: system messages, errors, loot, currency, and all creature messages. Disable everything else. This is how I'll be going through Legion's leveling in order to avoid as many spoilers as I possibly can. If you want to limit spoilers even more, then consider just not using social media for a while. Avoid Twitter, Facebook, MMO Champion, the WoW forums, Discord, IRC, or any other platform where you could accidentally get hit by a spoiler. A lot of the time, when someone spoils something, it's not an intentional thing. It can just be a complete accident, so the more you limit this, the better. At least if you want to avoid spoilers. It's not a big deal to just back away from it all and focus on enjoying yourself when Legion hits. You aren't obligated to be on social media, remember? That will conclude this video. Next time, I'll give you one last piece of advice. That'll be the final video in this series. It's gone quite quickly, hasn't it? But since we're nearing Legion's launch, there is one final ultimate piece of advice I want to give you that I feel is crucial for Legion's launch, and really any launch of a game. So we'll discuss that next time. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, or suggestions, you can contact me using the links in the description, or you can just leave a comment. If you want to help support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon page in the description as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I wish you the best of luck in the World of Warcraft.